There's a queue in London that has no royal shortcuts, no fast-track lane, no private entrance. People sleep on the pavement overnight, just for the chance to sit courtside at the most famous tennis tournament on earth. But on one summer morning, something unusual happens. A woman in blue steps out of a car, walks straight toward that line of tired, hopeful strangers, and stops. She doesn't wave from a distance. She doesn't rush past. She kneels down. She listens. She laughs. This isn't just any visitor. This is Catherine, Princess of Wales. And what happens next inside the gates of Wimbledon will remind an entire nation why she's become one of the most quietly powerful figures in modern royal history. To understand why this moment matters, you have to understand what Wimbledon actually is. It isn't just a tennis tournament. It's a ritual. Every summer, for 2 weeks, the world turns its attention to a patch of grass in southwest London called SW19. Strawberries and cream, rain delays, hushed crowds holding their breath on center court. And somewhere in the middle of all that tradition, there's a peculiar British institution simply known as the queue. Thousands of fans, some without any ticket at all, camp outside the grounds, sometimes for a full day, sometimes overnight, just for a chance to walk through the gates. It's democratic, it's exhausting, and it's deeply, stubbornly British. Now picture this. On the fourth day of the 2026 championships, the Princess of Wales arrives, not through a private entrance reserved for dignitaries, but by walking straight toward that queue. She's dressed elegantly in blue, a bold pair of earrings catching the light, looking every bit the part of royalty. But her body language tells a different story. She's not performing distance. She's closing it. And for the people who had been standing there since dawn, exhausted, sunburned, clutching flasks of coffee, her arrival turns an ordinary wait into something they'll tell their grandchildren about. This is the story of one single day, one queue, one court, one quietly extraordinary royal visit. Let's rewind slightly, because to understand why this visit felt so significant, you need to understand who was waiting for her. The people in that line weren't dignitaries. They weren't sponsors or celebrities. They were ordinary tennis fans, teachers, retirees, students, families, who had planned their entire year around a single week in London. Some had queued before, year after year, treating it almost like a pilgrimage. Others were first-timers, nervous and excited, unsure what to expect from a tradition older than most living memory. And waiting alongside them, quietly making sure everything ran smoothly, were the volunteer stewards, the unsung heroes of Wimbledon. These are the people who spend their entire day managing thousands of tired bodies, distributing wristbands, answering the same questions over and over with endless patience. They rarely get thanked publicly. They rarely get noticed at all. But on this particular morning, someone did notice them. The princess made her way specifically to meet these volunteers, thanking them for a job that keeps one of the world's most famous sporting events running like clockwork. It was a small gesture. But small gestures, repeated consistently, are often what define a public figure's true character. Then came a moment that revealed something even more personal about her. Waiting nearby were children from something called the Shine Camera Club, a creative photography program built inside a charity called Shine Merton. Now, on the surface, that might sound like just another charitable visit, a photo opportunity, a box ticked. But look closer, and there's real weight behind it. Shine Merton exists to support children from disadvantaged backgrounds. Kids who might not otherwise have access to creative outlets, mentorship, or the confidence that comes from being taught a skill and told, "You're good at this." Photography, in particular, gives these children something powerful, a way to observe the world, to tell their own stories, to be witnesses rather than bystanders. The year before this visit, students from the program had already made history in their own small way. As part of Wimbledon's official learning program, they created a portrait series celebrating what organizers called community trailblazers, ordinary local heroes reimagined as the stars of their own story. That project didn't just stay in a classroom. It was exhibited publicly during the Wimbledon qualifiers for the world to see. And now, a new group of these young photographers were being given an extraordinary assignment. They would spend the entire day inside the tournament grounds, cameras in hand, capturing Wimbledon through their own eyes. Not through the eyes of professional photographers who do this every year. through the eyes of children who might never have imagined they'd one day be granted access to one of the most prestigious sporting events on the planet. And their photographs wouldn't just disappear into a folder somewhere. The princess herself would later view their work. Think about what that means for a child from a disadvantaged background, knowing that the images you captured, through a lens you were taught to use, would be seen by someone the entire world recognizes. It's the kind of moment that can quietly reshape a young person's sense of what's possible for their life. This is where the emotional core of the story really lives. Not in the glamour of royal fashion or camera flashes, but in the quiet transfer of confidence from one generation to the next. But the day wasn't only about charity and tradition. It was also, unmistakably, about tennis. Because underneath the royal engagements and the official program, there is a simple, well-known fact. The Princess of Wales genuinely loves this sport. She wasn't just making an obligatory appearance. She stayed to watch the match itself. She took her seat among true tennis royalty, sitting alongside Deborah Javance, the chair of the All England Lawn Tennis Club, and Tim Henman, the former British number one whose own career once carried the hopes of a nation on centre court. Together, they watched a second-round clash between Britain's Arthur Feri and Finland's Otto Virtanen. Two players fighting for a foothold in a tournament that has ended careers and launched legends in equal measure. For the players on court, this was already a defining moment of their careers, the pressure of Wimbledon, amplified by the knowledge that royalty was in the stands. And for the princess, this wasn't a performance of interest. Those who watched her that day described someone who couldn't keep the smile off her face, someone genuinely enjoying the rhythm of the game, the tension of each point, the roar of the crowd. But it's what happened away from the match that truly captured people's attention. Because for generations, there has been an unwritten rule inside royal circles: no selfies. Photographs were formal, staged, distant. A photograph with a royal was something arranged by protocol, not spontaneity. That rule has been quietly loosening over recent years. And on this day, it dissolved completely. A fan approached, phone raised, half expecting to be gently redirected. Instead, the princess leaned in, smiled, and posed for the photo herself. In that instant, a rule that had defined royal distance for decades simply disappeared. And then came a moment that genuinely surprised even seasoned Wimbledon staff. As some of the queuers finally reached the front after their long wait, they found an unexpected figure behind the ticket desk. The Princess of Wales herself had stepped in, scanning tickets, welcoming fans through the gate personally, turning a mundane administrative moment into the story of a lifetime for whoever happened to be standing there. Imagine it. You've waited since sunrise. Your feet ache. You're tired, hungry, unsure if it was all worth it. And then you look up, and the person checking your ticket is a member of the royal family, smiling, present, treating you like the most important person in the building. For that one fan, Wimbledon didn't start the moment they walked through the gate. It started the moment they realized who was standing on the other side of that scanner. If there's a single image that defines this day, it isn't the tennis. It isn't even the fashion, though the blue ensemble and bold earrings certainly turned heads. It's the quiet collision of two worlds that almost never touch. On one side, centuries of royal tradition, formality, distance, protocol so rigid it once forbade something as simple as a photograph. On the other, ordinary people, a queue, a ticket desk, children with cameras who, until that morning, had every reason to believe royalty existed only on television screens and magazine covers. For one single day, that distance collapsed. The princess didn't just attend Wimbledon. She stepped into its most human corners. The tired queue, the overlooked volunteers, the disadvantaged children clutching donated cameras. And made each of them feel, if only briefly, like the most significant part of the entire tournament. That is the turning point of this story. Not a headline, not a photograph, a choice. The choice to kneel instead of wave, to scan tickets instead of simply appearing for the cameras, to pose for a selfie instead of politely declining. In a world where public figures are increasingly filtered, managed, and distant, that choice, small as it may seem, became something people couldn't stop talking about. Because in the end, people don't remember protocol. They remember how someone made them feel. And on that Thursday in SW19, An entire queue of strangers, a group of young photographers, and millions of people watching from home were reminded of something simple. Sometimes, the most powerful gesture a person in power can make is choosing not to act like they're above anyone at all. By the time the match ended and the sun began to dip behind center court, the day had already become something bigger than a royal engagement. It had become a small, quiet story about connection. The children from Shine Camera Club walked away not just with photographs, but with proof, tangible, undeniable proof, that their work mattered enough to be seen by someone the whole world recognizes. Somewhere in this world, a child who once doubted whether photography could be more than a hobby now has a memory that says otherwise. The volunteers who spend their days managing an endless flow of exhausted fans got something rare too, a moment of visibility, a simple thank you, delivered in person. And the fans in that queue, the ones who scanned in through gates checked by a member of the royal family herself, will likely tell that story for the rest of their lives. Not because Wimbledon changed. It didn't. The grass was still perfectly manicured. The strawberries were still served in little bowls. The queue was still long, and the volunteers still worked just as hard as they always have. What changed, for one single day, was distance. The distance between a princess and a stranger in a queue. The distance between royal protocol and a spontaneous smile. The distance between a disadvantaged child and the belief that their creativity could be seen by anyone at all. Perhaps that's the quiet lesson hidden inside this story. Titles, crowns, and centuries of tradition can build walls so high that ordinary people never expect them to come down. But sometimes, all it takes to lower that wall is choosing to kneel, to smile, to say yes to a photo, or to simply stand behind a ticket desk and welcome someone in. On an ordinary Thursday, in an extraordinary queue, a princess reminded the world of something simple. Sometimes, the greatest act of royalty isn't standing above the crowd. It's choosing to stand within it.